horrible people can be lonely too. Horrible people want friends too. But it doesn't mean that you have to put yourself in harm's way or in a precarious situation or even just an emotionally upsetting situation in order to help them. This compulsion to be the savior and to help everybody, you have to be really careful with that. Y'all, whoa, what a day to be alive, because it's Sunday. I love Sunday. And this is a hater hour. If you don't know where you are, this is not for everyone. It's a podcast hosted by me and me only. Just kidding. My co-host Jess is out today, and so we get a hater hour, which is a chaotic time where I can yell as much as I want, and nobody can stop me, and everyone's just held hostage here for as long as I feel like. That's what this is. I'm going to get right into the episode because I'm feeling so effing fiery about the topics we're going to talk about today. We've got some listener write-ins, some what-to-dos. I'm going to tell you this is the menu for the evening. We're about to talk about friend betrayal, such as narcissists, sociopaths, basically the super toxic people that you encounter in life. And I'm going to share several crazy-ass stories, mostly one crazy-ass story, about someone in my past who is probably the most insidiously destructive, I want to say evil person I've ever encountered. Like, if evil exists, it was in this person. We're going to answer some listener what-to-dos about this kind of like super, super destructive kind of friend. I think we might talk about how you get closure. Somebody wrote in about how to get closure. I think it's a great question that we get a lot. I might hit a dating what-to-do. And depending on how long I talk and how dry my voice gets, we'll see what I do. Okay, babies, we're going to start this off with a what-to-do from one of our listeners. Somebody wrote in and said, "Hello, Jess and Caroline. First of all, thank you for your amazing podcast. You're welcome. I can't wait to listen to it every time it comes out. Your advices and thoughts are always so relatable, accurate, and also you are both so funny." Okay, let me tell you what. Always started off with a compliment. Compliments are always welcome. She goes on, "This is a what-to-do. 9 years ago, I was studying abroad and was feeling very lonely and left out because I couldn't speak a word of English back then. A girl in my class decided to befriend me for some reason and spent so much time hanging out with me, teaching me how to speak English, and eventually it worked and we became good friends. We would see each other every day, and even if we were really different people, it was nice to have a close friend in a foreign place." Totally relate. "Even if we were close, I always felt like we wouldn't have been friends if it was a more comfortable context for me. For instance, she was the type of girl that had not one single girlfriend and would always say that it's because girls like drama. Weird for me to hear because I love my girlfriends, but okay. 3 years into the friendship, she betrayed me and spent weeks plotting this. To have me fail my entire school year, destroyed weeks worth of work, and made me lose my roommate. I was so shocked, and it was so hard to recover from that I eventually quit school without graduating and went straight back to France. A year later, she wrote me a letter to apologize and tell me she regretted doing this. She said she did it out of jealousy, that I was the best friend she ever had, blah, blah, blah. I never answered and have been ghosting her since the betrayal. I forgot about her, moved on with my life, and 3 weeks ago, this was when 6 years had gone by, she wrote me telling me that she moved to Paris, where I live, and that she'd love to catch up and see me. She used a heart emoji, question mark, question mark, question mark. Her message made me relive all the stress and sadness, but I also feel bad that she may be feeling lonely in Paris like I did back in the days. I don't want to see her and I want to move on. I was thinking of ghosting her again, but my boyfriend suggested I should let her go and tell her the truth about how I feel. I think the listener meant to write, my boyfriend suggested I should go and tell her about how I feel. I'm not sure. That might be a typo. But basically, the boyfriend suggested she go and tell her how she feels. But also, it feels dangerous to even talk to her. But on the other hand, maybe she will keep coming back if I don't express clearly how I feel about her. I am lost. I don't know what to do and how to deal with her and this situation. Ghost or not, what to do? Wow, 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 wow. Thank you for writing in about this. I wanted to read all the context because I think it's fascinating. Wow, I have so many things to say. I'm going to talk about this for a while because I think it hits on so many different things. First, the heck of all, I take issue with your use of the word ghosting. Not responding to somebody who has completely betrayed you, been incredibly destructive to your life, that's no longer ghosting. That's not ghosting. That's just like having a boundary. So, who knows how she means ghosting, but I just want to say this is no longer like, to me, ghosting is not having the courage to treat someone with the respect to say why there are differences, blah, blah, blah. This person has lost that honor. This person has lost the right to have access to you, has lost the right to have explanations about why you're not going to tolerate their destructive behavior. This is no longer ghosting. Ghosting implies that for you to be like a healthy, respectful, mature, communicating person, you might as well practice communicating difficult things to people. This is not that situation. Of course, there's probably plenty about the situation that I can't know, but I think it says a lot that the destructive person, let's give her a name, Clarissa. I think it says a lot that Clarissa wrote to the listener and admitted what she did, apologized, said it was because she was jealous. So I think we can take this all as pretty much fact. And given that, okay, I guess it's nice she apologized. Maybe it's manipulative. Like, we don't know. Maybe it's sincere. We don't know. Maybe she's just lonely and wants you back. We don't know. But this person has lost all these, rights to open communication, to your time, to your vulnerability. No, you gave her all of that. You gave her openness and vulnerability and years of your life and friendship, and she lost her right to access that anymore. So if you never want to reply to her again, that's not ghosting. That's not rude. That's not bad behavior. That's adult behavior to me. That's setting a boundary. And you can also set a boundary in which you want to communicate with her and tell her, no, don't want to see you. You ruined my life. But you also don't have to. I think that's a personal preference. As far as to like directly answer your question about should you go to this meetup, should you respond to her, the listener said in her own message, I don't want to. If you don't want to, that's the end of it to me. The only reason I would say I would, I guess, encourage you considering going is if you needed something from this. If it is unburdening to your soul, somehow feels expressive, to be able to say what was true, to say, look her in the eye and tell her the way she hurt you, that can be meaningful. But if you don't want it, or you don't need that, or you just don't want to go, I'd say do not go. You do not owe this person anything. And actually, this is someone who, like, this level of behavior, someone who admits they strategically worked to like destroy your life in meaningful ways. For whatever the reason, it's always for a reason. They're jealous, they're insecure, like there's always a reason. But, saying, well, I did it out of jealousy and poor me, it's a little like, oh, I'm the victim. Oh, feel bad for me. It's a little, whatever. It could be true, but all humans feel jealous. All humans feel insecure. And not all humans do this shit. This kind of behavior is like, sometimes people do things every once in a while. You see someone say something or do something that is so outside the realm of acceptable human behavior, that is so outside the realm of a healthy person who struggles in all the normal ways, that I'm like, we have to deal with you in a very different way. To me, this situation reeks of that. To me, this situation is like, I would no longer trust anything this person says. How the fuck could you? I don't trust their apology. I don't trust their intentions. I don't trust any of it. And it strikes me as so selfish that they're even gonna like ask more of you, ask of your time after what they've done to you. I don't care how many years have passed. Like, if to hurt someone that badly, I never did that, no matter how immature, no matter how unwise, no matter how unhealed. it's like just because you're young or unhealed or insecure or not that wizened yet doesn't mean you do shit like this. To me, that's almost like a whole other category of person. And maybe there's probably a way to have compassion for it, to have empathy for it, but that doesn't mean that you have to open yourself up to them anymore. They're on their own fucking journey. And you know what? Let's say maybe she's even changed. Maybe she has. Like, sometimes people change. This seems like a pretty extreme kind of behavior. I would be surprised if a person like this changed. I would be very surprised. I can't prove it, but I would be surprised. But even if she did change, personally, I would feel like this is no longer a risk I'm willing to take. This is like, why would I go back into this horrible situation? Trust is such a fragile thing. And once you lose that, you're not someone that I'm willing to take risks on anymore. And maybe she's a totally different person, but that's not really your business. If you don't want to go see her again, you don't owe her anything. It's not ghosting. It's not rude. It's a boundary. I was talking to Justin about this. Okay, I will say, first of all, I think I would either not respond at all, block, who cares, or you can send a message just like once and for all before you block to be like, I appreciate it. I wish you all the best. I'd prefer not to meet up. Wish you all the best. And like, so you've said it once, she knows your answer, and then block them. I was talking to Justin about this, and Justin had a different approach. Justin was like, oh, I would 100% write her back and be like, you ruined my life. I want nothing to do with you. You made my life absolute hell, blah, 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 blah. Like, give it to her and block. And that's not my approach, but he did go on to say, he was like, in that situation, I want them to be very clear about what happened. I do not want them to be able to rewrite the narrative of whatever. He's like, I want to let them know you ruined my life. You're terrible to me. Absolutely fucking not. So that's a different approach. Also legitimate. Personally, I just like to kind of move the fuck on. I would probably say like, not interested, wish you all the best, get the fuck out of there. Oh, one more thing I wanted to say. The listener wrote in saying she felt bad because this girl who betrayed her is now lonely and maybe needs friends in Paris, blah, blah, blah. And let me say this, being so compassionate and wanting to support people who need help and reach out, and blah, blah, like this is an amazing quality you have. And it is that very quality that dangerous people prey upon. Those are the people they prey upon. Honestly, I feel like that's how I am. I'm extremely guilt-ridden. I am ready to believe that everything is my fault. I am honestly pretty easily manipulated, I think. And I have a kind of big bleeding heart. And I always think about, I think I've even talked about on the podcast, like, oh, but maybe I was in that situation before, and like, it would be like how nice it would be if I could pay this thing forward that I wish someone had done for me, or be their friend, or help them through, or be the person who believes in them and knows that they can be better, or be the person who sees their goodness and can help. Like all these ways I want to fucking help people. It's a great quality to have, but you do have to be careful with it. And really, really dangerous people, singularly dangerous people, predatory people, they sniff that out. They find it. Or, they probably, they find that quality or people who have that quality and they prey on it. And so if you have that quality, you're super compassionate, you're always willing to turn the other cheek, you're always trying to give the benefit of the doubt, like a good quality to have, but you got to be careful with it because they will prey upon it if you encounter someone like this. I think it's really good. This is when it's important to practice setting your boundaries. You don't have to be the savior of everybody. It's really nice that you that you worry about her because she probably is lonely. Horrible people can be lonely too. Horrible people want friends too. But it doesn't mean that you have to put yourself in harm's way or in a precarious situation or even just an emotionally upsetting situation in order to help them. This compulsion to be the savior and to help everybody, you have to be really careful with that. Because predatory people, they'll bounce around seeing like who will take the bait. And people who are not excessively compassionate, who don't have like this bleeding heart, they pass the predators over much more quickly because they won't have their boundaries crossed. But people who are real loose with their boundaries are the ones that will let the predator stick around. So I have learned that you have to be a little bit more careful. It's just a good opportunity to work on your boundaries if she's lonely, that's okay. People survive loneliness, and she can deal with the consequences of that, or, figure out how to make friends. Just because she's lonely and you feel bad for her does not mean you have to save her from it. It does not. So I'll share a personal anecdote and how I dealt with it. This was not that long ago. A couple of years ago, I was pretty lonely, was restarting my life, and I became friends with these two girls. We're going to call them Sarah and Amanda. And we had a great, we all got along really well together. We were all kind of looking for new friends. We had a great time. And pretty early on, I noticed that Sarah had some pretty obvious insecurities to me. She really didn't like Amanda and I to be hanging out on her own. It was things like that. That is to me such a glaring red flag. That's such high school behavior already, to be insecure about your friends having other friendships. But it was such a clear, obvious insecurity to me that I was like, I see it. I have compassion for it. I'm not threatened by it. It's so transparent to me. That's fine. She's a little younger. It's okay. Not worried, because I see what it is. It's just an insecurity. But as time went on, that insecurity proved to be more and more worrisome. Now, I don't know the whole psychological situation or what Sarah was feeling or going through, but the impact it had on me was that I felt her trying to start fights between me and my friend Amanda. I experienced Sarah saying horrible, horrible things about Amanda behind her back, who was supposed to be both of our good friend. To hear one of your friends saying horrible things about the other friend, and then you go see them hang out together and be nice to her face, it's that's really bad. First of all, why would I think you're saying nicer things behind my back? I can't trust you. I don't know why you're saying these horrible things about a person you're friends with. And then the biggest problem was that it became really clear that Sarah was trying to start fights between me and Amanda. We would all go out to a dinner together, perfectly nice dinner. And Amanda, by the way, is one of the most beautiful, pure-hearted people on the face of the earth. So pure, doesn't get in a fight with anybody, so direct, so honest, the loveliest. I'm chaos, but Amanda, we can't say anything bad about Amanda, just the purest person. We would go to a dinner all together, completely normal fucking dinner. And then we'd leave dinner, and the next day, Sarah would be like, oh man, things were pretty tense with you and Amanda. Or oh man, I could see she's kind of on edge around you. And I'd be like, what? I mean, I didn't pick up on that. What? I don't know about that. Which, first of all, let's stop right there. If you experience this, such a fucking red flag. If you ever experience somebody passing on someone else's feelings, a third party telling you someone else's feelings about you, especially negative ones, I mean, I would say only negative ones. If you're oh, Amanda loves you so much, Amanda's so fond of you, great. But if you have a friend or family or someone who is always passing on how negatively other people think or feel about you, or something that feels like negativity, and that person's not saying it to you themselves, huge fucking red flag. First of all, they are not allowed to pass on someone else's feelings. Huge violation of privacy if those feelings are even real. And also, I need to hear that from the person themselves. And also, get the fuck out of here. What are you fucking doing here? Get the fuck out of here. And Amanda, bless her heart, was such a direct person, and we had such a good friendship that I was like, well, maybe I did miss something. Maybe she is mad at me. And I would just go directly to Amanda and be like, are you mad about something? Is there something that, do we need to talk about anything? Did I do something? Do I need to apologize for something? And we would just talk about it, and she'd be like, no, what are you talking about? Go away. No, there's nothing going on. We're good. We're great. And this happened enough that eventually I was getting so fed up with it. And at times, this behavior did successfully create fights between Amanda and I. Fights where we never had fights just on our own. It would always be something seeded by Sarah, and me reacting to something Sarah said, or me reacting to an idea Sarah put in my head. And in the meantime, I have no fucking idea what Sarah is telling Amanda about me. Who fucking knows? And I had a couple of direct talks with Sarah in different ways. I tried to talk to her about it. I was like, hey, what is this? Hey, this makes me feel pretty bad. Like, hey, can we not do this thing? And this was so many years ago. I can't even remember. It never really amounted to anything. I was trying to handle it. I was trying to be direct. I was trying to give her an opportunity to change. In my head, I was like, maybe this is just someone who hasn't had more mature friendships. Maybe she needs to like experience how this is not acceptable behavior in this friendship. And I was trying to give her the chance to change and learn. People can learn, people can change. You show them how you want to be treated, how you expect to be treated. I wanted to give her the chance. And eventually, after so much fucking drama, there was like a final straw where it was one of these things. We went out to dinner, everything's fine. I felt like we'd finally repaired the group. Oh, wait, here's the other thing. Sarah was always trying to get time alone with Amanda, or time alone with me, or calls alone with Amanda, calls alone with me, texts with her, texts with me, private conversations. And there's actually a word for this. It's called triangulating. And it's something that it's a really toxic behavior where someone gets people alone and starts planting seeds alone, either in order to plant seeds in a dynamic, to affect someone's thinking, to influence them. They always get them alone. So we're going to have this private conversation. We're going to have that private conversation. We're going to have this hangout. And at first I thought all the triangulating was just because she was insecure about being left out. And like if Amanda and I hung out, she also wanted to have a hangout with her and Amanda, which also could be part of it. But I noticed this triangulating happening where it was like all these secret messages being passed about the group in corners. I was so upset. Such disgustingly immature behavior. It made me feel so unsafe. It made me feel like I couldn't tell her things. I didn't know what information would be used against me. It made me feel like I didn't know what she was saying about me. It made me feel, most terrifyingly of all, like I would lose my friend, Amanda. I was really afraid I was going to lose this friendship for no good fucking reason. So eventually there was some final straw. I was so over it. I still tried to bring it up to her, to Sarah, calmly and be like, hey, maybe you didn't mean it, but when you say this thing, it makes me feel blah, blah, blah. She lashed out at me, very telling response. And eventually I was like, okay, listen, if you want to talk about it all, like, let's get on the phone. Let's have a conversation. Let's clear everything up. So we got on the phone. And I came very prepared to this phone call because I'd actually had an experience like this before with someone even darker, even more evil, which I'll talk about later. And that prior experience, I think, opened my eyes to seeing this behavior much sooner. And I was pretty sure, I was like, this isn't going to change, but I'm going to give her a final shot, a final conversation, just so I can rest easy knowing I did everything I could. So I came very prepared to this phone call with my talking points and aware of the ways she likes to manipulate, the ways she likes to try and engage me in a fight. I came prepared, with my boundaries, what I wasn't going to do, whatever. And we had this phone call and I kind of talked through the things that were concerning me. And of course, instead of trying to explain or apologizing or trying to understand more, she just immediately went into attack mode. It was like seeing a feral animal backed into a corner, just like claws out, teeth bared, telling me all the ways I'm horrible, all the ways I'm awful, all the things I've done wrong, blah, 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 blah. Now, I'm not a perfect person. For sure, I've had to apologize in this friendship circle. I'm a human person. But it was very revealing to me that she had all of these huge, horrible complaints about how horrible I was. And then my response, I would say, I was like, wow, it sounds like you have a lot of anger towards me. Like, do you want to talk about some of these things? And she said, no, I don't want to talk about it. And I said, okay, well, okay, then I guess that's the end of the phone call. And we kind of just got off the phone. She threw her insults, but didn't want to talk about them more, didn't want to explain it. And I was like, okay, I guess that's the end of the friendship. I did what I can. And then, of course, like a week later or so, I get a sheepish text from her being like, hey, like, do you want to hang out? Blah, blah, blah. And I don't know exactly what I texted back, but I basically was like, well, you had a lot of anger at me. You said some very serious things about me. but you didn't want to talk about them or work on them. So first of all, why the fuck do you want to be my friend if that's really how you feel? If those aren't just assaults to attack me and that's really how you feel about me, why do you want to be my friend? Why would you want to glide past this? It doesn't make any sense. And I was like, and you said, you know, I didn't say that to her, but I was like, and you said you didn't want to talk through them anymore. And if we can't talk about things, then I don't really know where this friendship can go. And she reached out to me 1 or 2 more times after that, but that was it. I kind of gave her all of the opportunity to be direct, to talk about these things. If she had anger at me, which anger and upset and hurt happens in almost every relationship, let's talk about it. Let's clear the air. Sometimes you really can get through to a deeper level of understanding how we misinterpreted each other, how I could have done something unfair, whatever. Like, let's talk about it. But she did all the work for me to end this relationship. She slung the insults, threw the stones, but then refused to move forward. Great, easy, I'm done. I cannot move forward with somebody who cannot talk to me about things. I don't think any of these were real opinions or complaints she actually had. She was like backed up against a wall. But even if they were, we have to be able to talk about the problems, or else this is not a healthy friendship. I don't know how to be intimate in this relationship. And that kind of fell to the wayside.
Yo, dogs. Jess here. Finding a new doctor is so frustrating. I just the other day was looking to make an appointment with a gynecologist for like an annual exam. Yeah, getting freaky down there. And I honestly didn't really know where to go until I remembered that ZocDoc is a thing. I've been a big fan of them over the years and used them kind of on and off, probably for the last 10 years or so. So we really appreciate that they're sponsoring today's episode. If you've moved to a new city, if you just notice like a weird mole that you've never had before, if you don't like the primary care doctor that you've been seeing since your mom took you to the pediatrician, you might just need a freaking new doctor, which shouldn't be so hard to find. And it is. Until you go to ZocDoc and they help you with it. You can find a doctor that's in network for your insurance, that is close by to your home or your work. You can even find virtual providers on there. It's so easy, and I've had really great experiences every time I've used it.
That's actually exactly why the insurance thing is exactly why I was using it all the time when I was living in New York, and insurance would just come in and out of my life. And it was always changing because I was living this vagabond life and I never knew who was in network for me. I would always go and use ZocDoc because you can search by network. It was just the easiest way. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high quality in-network doctors. You can choose the right one for your needs, and you can instantly get an appointment. You can get one within 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even get same day appointments, which is very cute.
I've done that.
Yeah. They have in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every single specialty, from mental health to dental health, eye care, skincare, much more. If you're not using it, what you doing, baby girl?
Not going to the doctor. That's what it seems like.
Yeah. Just sit with that mole. Just sit with the mole. Can I tell you what really quick? This is not, we're in an ad right now, but I do need to say that one time I had to get this mole.
We're breaking the fourth wall.
We're breaking the fourth wall. And one time I had to go and the dermatologist mapped out all of my moles because I had to get one removed on my shoulder. And then she was like, oh, look at that. You got a third nipple. And I was like, excuse me, ma'am. Why would you yell that at me? No, I don't. And she was like, yeah. And then she was like, Clarissa, come in here. I want you to look at this. And she was like, that's a third nipple. And just TLDR, everybody, it just looks like a mole, like you wouldn't even know. But it was I didn't like that experience. I didn't find her through ZocDoc, and she just started screaming about third nipples to me. It's not like a freak situation. It's just like a mole. But I didn't really like how it was handled, and wouldn't have happened if we'd had ZocDoc.
Yeah, honestly, you probably went to ZocDoc after that to find a new dermatologist. That's freaking not good. We don't like. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/notforeveryone, fully spelled out, not FOR, everyone, to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor. Again, that's ZocDoc.com/ full name of our podcast, Not For Everyone.
No numbers, just letters.
ZocDoc.com/notforeveryone.
This was a really difficult and upsetting, heartbreaking situation to be in, because this girl, Sarah, it's not like she's all bad. She was such a fun, hilarious person. Great in so many ways. It's not usually so black and white. Like, there's a reason you connect with them. There's a reason you spend time together. But I will no longer, like, being fun or being funny or being cool or fun to go out with, I don't give a fuck about that if you're not a good person. If you are putting at risk my other relationships, if you are putting at risk like my well-being, my feeling of safety in my friends, like, why do you even have friendships then? No fucking way. Get the fuck out of here. I don't care how fun you are. I don't care how good the banter is. You do not need to settle for that shit. Romantically, platonically, you do not need to settle for that shit. There are other fun people out there. And the thing about this friend, it was really, really hard to lose her. And I missed her a lot after that. It was not like an easy walk away. She and I had this level of banter that I was single at the time, and she really kind of filled, in a way, this gap that I'd had with my ex, where we had this very close comedic banter. And I hadn't found that since. And she really kind of filled that for me. But that's not fucking enough. It wasn't enough for me and my ex, and it wasn't enough for her in this toxic relationship. I would so much rather, in fact, I insist now on being friends with people who are good fucking people, safe people. Those are the people I love. Those are the people who will bring goodness into your life, like my friend Amanda. Oh my fucking God. And on the topic of Amanda, I will say, if you're in this situation, with like there's other friends involved, it can be really, really hard to know what to do. Because I think on one hand, you can have the impulse to like go and tell Amanda how dangerous you feel this person is. But ultimately, I decided not to. Because first of all, I don't want to be responsible for ruining someone else's relationship. I don't want to get involved in that. I didn't like Sarah coming to me and telling me negative feelings Amanda had, and I'm not going to go to Amanda and tell her my negative feelings about Sarah. Not going to do it. And anyways, like, if I'm correct about this person, and this is a really dangerous person to be friends with, a destructive person to be friends with, and this is how they are, then the truth will out, honeys. The truth will out. The truth will reveal itself. Amanda will learn in time. Would I let Amanda or a friend know if I really thought like they're really putting this friend in danger? Sure. And I told her a bit. I told Amanda, like, these are the reasons it didn't seem very safe or healthy for me anymore. I had concerns here. I tried to talk to Sarah about this. This was her response. She didn't want to move forward. There we go. But I really didn't want to be responsible for like telling my friend how they need to feel about someone. I think that's just a weird position to be in. I don't think it sounds good. And I'm really not interested in convincing anybody of my reality. I'm not interested in that. I know what the reality is. I know what the healthy choice is for me. And I believe and I know that the truth will out. And the truth, it seems, has been outing, I will tell you, since that time. Other things I could have done, I thought about this a lot, but didn't do it. I could have gone to Amanda and said, wow, you won't believe what Sarah says about you behind your back all the fucking time. I could say that, but then I don't feel like I would be that different from Sarah. And so ultimately, like, I have faith in my read of the situation. The truth will out. I gave Amanda the information that I think she needs to know to understand where I'm coming from. And other than that, she's going to make her choice. Now, there are instances where I think it is important, like, to actually, if someone's actually in danger, there are some instances where I think you can give more of an alert to people about someone who's like a dangerous, destructive person. But in this situation, I explained to Amanda what she needed to know. You know, basically, I felt like, I said to Amanda, like, I feel like I was going to lose our friendship if this thing continued, if these fights kept coming up, blah, blah, blah. So, like, this weird friend breakup we had, I did that because I'm choosing our healthy friendship and I didn't want to lose you. So she understood the bottom line, something around friendship, whatever. The rest is up to her. But I feel lucky that I was able to, I think, identify what was going on here pretty quickly. And by quickly, I mean, it took maybe like a year and a half for this friendship to ultimately be ended. And the only reason I think I caught it that early, and my friend Amanda did not, is because I actually had years and years of experience with a person like this. I just happened to encounter this before, and it was a horrific situation. It was so much worse than this. Like, this I considered, dangerous, and I don't want to be around it. It's destructive, but it's also like, whatever. But I had an experience through years of my life with someone who I think like maybe possibly embodies evil as much as one can embody evil. Like, if the devil is real, I met her. And so I was, and it took me years to notice that pattern, years to understand how this person operated. And so by the time I met Sarah, I was like attuned to this behavior. But a lot of people I think could meet someone like that Sarah situation and you just keep giving them the benefit of the doubt because you think that they're like you. And you can make mistakes, you can be insecure, you want to learn from it, you want to do better by people, but that's not the case for everybody. It is not. It's the case for most people, but there are exceptional people out there who maybe they're just too wounded, or they're too damaged, or they have a brain injury, or I don't know. But there are some people who do not seem capable or willing to learn and better themselves. I'm going to tell you the story of meeting the personification of evil right now, and how I learned to be able to notice this kind of behavior. The embodiment of evil. Oh my gosh. This is a completely different situation to me. Like, this was so dark and so scary. The things I saw were so depressing, so insidious. It was wild. So I was in a relationship when I was much, much younger. And my boyfriend at the time had this sister. And I remember early on in the relationship, my boyfriend saying to me, he would get in fights with his sister and blah, blah, blah. Everyone gets in fights with their siblings. It's called life. And my boyfriend would say things like, I could really see a future in which I'm estranged from her. And when I heard that as a very young person, I was shocked to hear someone say they could be estranged from their siblings. I was like, how could you say that? Like, everyone fights with their siblings. Like, you don't have to say that about them. That's family, la, la, la. Fast forward to about 6 years later, I understood why he should probably be estranged from his sister. And the lesson I took from that, side note, was if you're talking to somebody, if I'm talking to somebody that I respect their take on things, I respect their read on things, take them at their fucking word about what they say about their family. I will not make that mistake again. When I, having a boyfriend now or a friend now, if I trust their take at all and they say this is dangerous or this is horrible or this is hard or this is tricky, I will never again make the mistake of thinking I know someone's family better than they do. They might be entrenched and enmeshed in some dynamics in a tricky, messy way. And yes, they can always benefit from an outside perspective, but fucking believe people when they tell you that they know their family dynamic. Because most of the time they're correct. I felt like that was like a big mistake on my part. I didn't understand this kind of a person yet. I didn't understand this kind of insidious, destructive behavior. And it's hard to capture. It's hard to capture 6 years of behavior in a couple of minutes. But some of the things I realized over years was that she genuinely did not want good things for her siblings. She genuinely did not want them to succeed. She would go out of her way to try to take them down when they had successes. She didn't even want her other siblings to be friends with each other. She actually didn't want anyone in the family to have strong relationships with each other than her. Again, we call this triangulating. She was always trying to control communications within their family. If one brother had a fight with one of their other sisters or had an issue with one of the other sisters, the problematic sister, did I give her a name? We'll call her Jalupa. Jalupa would be like, oh, let me take care of it. Like, I'll call our sister for you. Like, I'll put in the call. Let me handle it. And it seemed nice because she was good at talking and she was always offering to help. And over years, I realized she was doing this to control the family communications. And I realized this because I would end up on the receiving end of it. I would end up on the receiving end of her passing a message along from somebody to me. Who knows if she got their approval to pass along a message. And she was really good at embedding hurt in the message in a way that didn't sound like she was embedding hurt. It sounded accidental, but she would be like, oh, Sophie was just saying this about you, but I feel like what she actually meant, and she would say something really hurtful, that Sophie said something really hurtful, but I feel like what she actually meant was this, so I think she was just being insecure and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm all butthurt about something mean Sophie said, and Jalupa is sitting there seemingly advocating for Sophie, trying to display compassion for what she thinks Sophie meant. But in the meantime, she's telling me something super hurtful. So I'm pissed at Sophie now. And Jalupa gets to look like the nice person who's both trying to look out for me and trying to advocate for Sophie. And it took years of this pattern, years of being on the receiving end of it, years of watching her do it to other people for me to realize what she was doing. It would be the kind of thing where we would be in a room with, there was another sister, Sophie. And for years, Sophie and I had all this tension and animosity, and I really don't know why. At the end of all these years, Sophie and I kind of realized we had no reason to dislike each other, and we ended up being very good, friendly friends. But it was the kind of thing for years where we'd all be hanging out, and then after the fact, Jalupa would be like, man, I can't believe the way Sophie talked to you, Caroline. Or I can't believe that she just got up from the table right away when you sat down. Did you notice that? Or like, man, that was so rude of Sophie to say such and such to you. Did you hear her tone? And I was completely new to the family at this point. I was just like, oh, no, I didn't notice her tone. Oh, did she get up from the table? Like, I didn't know. Wow, she must really hate me. Wow, why is she treating me? And so red flag, here's a lesson. If someone is calling attention to, hurts you've suffered that you didn't even know you suffered, I don't know, fucking red flag to me. First of all, if Sophie really was doing those things, really talking down to me, if I didn't notice it, why the fuck would you tell me that? Why the fuck? You're not looking out for me by telling me that. But it wasn't even things I had noticed, and they weren't even things that had happened. It took me years to realize this. But in the meantime, Jalupa could get me really riled up about, oh, I guess Sophie is being mean to me in public. Oh, I guess Sophie doesn't like this. Oh, I guess Sophie didn't like that. And then when I saw Sophie, I was a little hardened towards her. And I could be a little snappy towards her. And I might take a jab at her. And then the genius of this is that Sophie has a real reason to dislike me now. And now Sophie saw that I snapped at her, saw that I'm not warm to her, saw that I'm edgy towards her, and now Sophie is genuinely being rude to me. And now it's like it's taken on of a life of its own. Jalupa doesn't even need to feed the beast anymore because Sophie's being rude to me, I'm being rude to Sophie, and we don't even fucking know why. I saw Jalupa orchestrate this between their various siblings. It was like a family of 5, and I saw her orchestrate this between all of the siblings. And at some point, I would stop my boyfriend and I'd be like, are you sure your brother did XYZ that you're mad about? Or is that something that came through Jalupa? Like, are you sure this is a real hurt that you guys have between you? Or is this fucking traced back 10 years to Jalupa? And at a certain point, it was hard to say because she could get people to start snapping at each other to the point that she made it real. It was like evil manifesting. And so it does take on a life of its own eventually if you start responding to that. So if you're ever in that situation, the best thing you can do is just go directly to the person, not to Jalupa. Go directly. Jalupa's passing on bullshit from Sophie. Go directly to Sophie and talk to Sophie and be like, well, Jalupa told me this. Or when you're talking to Jalupa, better yet, this is what I would do with Sarah. I'd be like, wow, so interesting, Sarah, to learn that Amanda is so mad at me. I'm going to go and call Amanda right after this and I'll talk to her about it. So Sarah knows, Jalupa fucking knows, I am going to talk to the other person immediately. I'm not going to react to this. I'm not going to get emotional. I'm not going to grow a grudge. I'm going to talk to them directly. I was much younger then, so I didn't know that. I didn't even fucking know this was happening. It took me years to understand the pattern. Can I tell you a freaking secret?
Always.
So you remember I used to work in tech, and one of the first jobs I had in tech was working for an e-commerce agency. And at this company, we like designed and ran online stores like the official NBC store, the HBO store, the Hulu store. If you've ever bought like merch from one of those shows or stores, it came from the sites we made, the e-commerce sites. And every single one of those sites are built on Shopify, which is why damn as heck out here, which is why when Jess and I decided we want to launch our merch store, the Not For Everyone merch store, we knew we wanted to do it on Shopify, because whether you were starting a e-commerce platform for like your super small business or a professional level business for the NBC store, it covers all ends. It is completely professional, out of the box. You do not have to be a technical person to use it. You get a beautiful design. It just does all the heavy lifting, which is why we would use it even at a completely professional level, because it does so much of the work for you. We love Shopify, and so we've asked them to sponsor today's episode. Whether you are selling DJ turntables or leggings that scrunch your butt, Shopify will help you sell everywhere with their all-in-one e-commerce platform, their in-person POS system. Whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. I can tell you firsthand, I've been on all ends of the spectrum with Shopify for years.
Yeah, Shopify has made it so much easier to make my merch store dreams come true. I feel like from the day that we started the podcast, I was like, I'm envisioning hats, I'm envisioning mugs. And it seemed like a pipe dream until we figured out, why don't we just use Shopify? We've heard about it so much on all these podcasts, and it did not disappoint. It was so easy to use. People are buying stuff from our store every single day. Shopify helps you actually turn people who are just browsing on your site into real buyers. They have the best converting checkout in the game. They also have some AI tools that help you really elevate the way that your site operates and all the automations that you can do. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US, and it's also able to sell globally across 175 countries. Plus, its award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. To be honest, I've never even had to contact their help just because it's that easy, but it's nice to know that it's there. We are so happy to be growing with Shopify, and can't recommend it enough, honestly.
Cannot. If you guys want to try it, you can sign up for $1 per month in their trial. $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/notforeveryone. That is all lowercase, all letters. There's no numbers in there. Go to shopify.com/notforeveryone now, and you can grow your business no matter what stage you're in, at the we just launched stage to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. That's shopify.com/notforeveryone. I remember just other tangential things. I remember every once in a while, Jalupa would like reveal herself, unknowingly. She was super smart, super capable, super cutthroat. But every once in a while, she would slip up and reveal herself, reveal who she really was. I remember this one time, their parents asked all the kids to like help their grandparents moving. The grandparents were like moving to a new home, and they wanted us all around to help their ailing grandparents move. And we were all making arrangements for how we were going to help the grandparents move. And on the side, privately, Jalupa told me, she was like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to fucking help with that. But I'm not going to tell my mom that yet. I'm going to wait until my mom fucks up and she insults me or hurts me or pisses me off somehow. And then I'm going to tell her that's why I'm not coming to help the grandparents, and she'll think it's her fault. So that's what I'll do. She fucking told me this. She told me this, that she was going to manipulate and gaslight her own mother and let her feel guilty, like she was the reason that her daughter wasn't going to go and help out the grandparents because she had screwed up. She was sitting and waiting. She was so good at this. I mean, she was a master, except that she would occasionally tell me what she was doing. And I was like, first of all, that's one of the most evil fucking things I've ever heard a person say. And you just told me you're going to do it. So why the hell would you not be doing the same thing to me? I remember another moment where Sophie, this other sister, talked about when they had first met me. I was one of the later people to join the family. I was like a later girlfriend. And Sophie taught, in kind of an offhand comment, referenced how she realized, she was saying this jokingly, because I don't think she was really wise to Jalupa's shit. But she did say this comment, and I was like, do you even know what you just said? She just commented on how she realized what a great actor Jalupa was when they all met me for the first time, because she saw how nice Jalupa was to me right off the bat when she knew she didn't feel that way. And this is what, I don't even know what Sophie the fuck thought she was saying. It was a crazy thing to say, but it was like she witnessed Jalupa being fakely nice to me, so fakely nice that she was like, oh, this person's an amazing actor. And everyone just like giggled about this. And I was like, why are y'all giggling? This is some crazy ass evil behavior. Anyway, I can't even remember all the stories. Now, these are just like the highlight summaries. I cannot remember it all. It was years and years of this, and years till I was even noticing the patterns. But eventually I just noticed that like these fights between family members would really only happen when a message was passed along by Jalupa. Jalupa decided she was going to help you out. She was going to help you mediate this fight. She'll make the call to the sibling you're in a fight with. And then somehow there would be a bigger fucking fight. But Jalupa always walked away looking pretty innocent. And the family was kind of onto her. Like the father at once said, like, I think the father kind of tried to control and tame Jalupa. And he was like, if I'm not around anymore one day to control her, this family will fall apart. He fucking knew. My boyfriend at the time, he fucking knew. He would go in and out of phases of like, you know, it's his sibling. I think it's really hard. It's so hard to walk away from family. But he would get to the point where he was like, I think I should be estranged from her. I think she's dangerous. And eventually I was like, I understand why you say that. There are dangerous people out there, and sometimes they're your fucking sibling, and sometimes they're your parent, and sometimes they're your child. And I can't even imagine what that experience is like and how hard that must be. But you don't have to let those people have access to you. If you're going to let them stay in your life, that's your choice. But you can very much limit the access to them. And eventually, I learned, like, to survive in this family, what I had to do was I was not sending any private communications anymore. If there was a communication that the whole family needed to hear about it, it was going on a family group text. Even hard things like difficult come to Jesus talks, I was not sending it to one person. I was not having a one-off conversation. Everybody is going to see the text so that Jalupa cannot twist my words. Jalupa cannot try and rephrase what I said. Everybody's going to have the source, primary source information. This is, I think, one of the most important things. I'm not an expert on dealing with these people, but I do think that's one of the ways that like narcissistic, sociopathic people thrive is they thrive on triangulation. They thrive on controlling communication, getting these side conversations going so they can control the narrative. They can get you riled up. They can actually get you to feel feelings about someone else that you didn't even think you needed to feel. And the whole thing can take on a life of its own. It's disgusting. It's evil itself. It's wild. And I basically was just like, you're not allowed to control any of my communications anymore. And the victory of the story was a few years in, I realized Jalupa was particularly poisoning my relationship with this other sibling, Sophie. And I was just like, I don't care what damage has been done. I'm going to see this through. I'm going to be persistently kind and good and not take the bait from Jalupa and not take the bait from anybody. And this is going to heal. And Sophie and I eventually healed our friendship. We ended by the time my ex and I broke up. By the time I left the family, Sophie and I had like a beautiful friendship, and it was really, really sweet. And it was so meaningful. It took years to repair it and like a lot of steadfastness to prove, because I had taken the bait from Jalupa. I had, you know, believed Sophie was angry at me, believed Sophie didn't like me, believed Sophie didn't want me there. And so I would kind of be rude to her. And I'd done damage by taking the bait. And it took me years to kind of rectify that. And I was actually so proud. I think it was like one of the hardest things I ever did, because it took years of patience and like steadfastness of being like, I'm not going to take this fucking bait. And we ended up with like a very positive relationship, which was very rewarding. And I feel like just confirmed everything I fucking thought about Jalupa. So when you're talking about people like this, people that, you know, maybe they would get the diagnosis of a narcissist or a sociopath or whatever. And I think people spend a lot of time, you know, obsessively trying to label people that, or like figure out, are they, aren't they? And personally, I don't know how much you need to sweat over the diagnosis. I've spent a lot of time on that. But to me, you know, it's like Jalupa ticks off 10 of the items on the checklist for one or both of these things. So it doesn't really, the rest doesn't really matter. I don't really care if she's officially a narcissist or a sociopath. Honestly, if she's not, I don't know who the fuck is. But it also doesn't really matter because the characteristics are the same. The problem is not the diagnosis. The problem is that she has these patterns, these characteristics, these behaviors. And that's what I need to learn to respond with and deal with. So if you're kind of hung up, my personal opinion, if you're hung up on the like, well, I don't know, are they a narcissist or are they just super selfish and super paranoid and super insecure and super destructive? I don't know if it fucking matters. You're dealing with a super selfish, destructive, insecure, dangerous person. That's what you need to know. The rest doesn't really fucking matter to me. I'm sorry I'm cursing so much. I've been meaning to talk about this forever. This was like one of the craziest experiences of my life. This kind of person, if they're any good at it, they're very good at it. And it's insidious. And I think the lessons I learned was like, don't believe negative feelings about you from anyone except like, unless it's coming from the person themselves. If someone's mad at you, if someone has a problem with you, they can say it for themselves with an I statement. You can talk to them. Be very aware, very alert. I would say be on high alert if you start hearing negative feedback that someone's sharing on someone else's behalf. That's not healthy fucking behavior. What the fuck is that about? No. I would tell them I'm going to the source to ask them about that. Thanks for letting me know. I'll just go talk to them about that right now and go to the source and clear it up. And don't be aggressive about it because it's probably a fucking lie. Don't let them control your communications. Don't let them triangulate you. This trying to get the side conversations, make sure there's no open communication. You know, like showing the receipts, comparing receipts. That's usually how these people get exposed because nobody is comparing their receipts. If we all compared receipts, well, she told me this and she told you this and she told you that and she told me this, but they usually get the communication so isolated and triangulated that nobody's doing that, or they've created enough fights and tension and drama that people aren't inclined to share notes anymore because they're in fights with everybody, and that is how they thrive. So literally, open communication is the key. It is the key to bringing these people down, which is why, like with my friend Amanda, I did want to have open communication. I think a lot of the times these kind of dangerous people thrive because of this attitude of like, oh, I don't want to get in someone else's business. Oh, I just want to mind my own business, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, there's something to that. But I tried to find the line with Sarah and Amanda where I was like, I'm going to tell Amanda the fair facts, which I think I know, which is that she was causing fights between you and I. I didn't want to lose our friendship. I didn't feel like I could trust her anymore. She threw all these insults at me and seemed very upset with me as a friend, but then refused to talk about anything, which seemed confusing to me. And so she doesn't want to move forward and talk about anything. I can't have a relationship with that person. So I gave her the information. I let her know I felt unsafe, I couldn't trust her, blah, blah, blah. So Amanda had the information. And beyond that, she has access to the information, but usually people are going to believe it once they experience it for themselves, you know? And I don't want to be another Sarah. I don't want to be another Jalupa saying nasty shit. So I tried to get it down to like the solid, grounded, emotionless facts of the situation. I'm not going to try and convince anybody to agree with me. I'm not going to try and convince anyone to break up with another friend. That is their choice. I will give them responsible information. And other than that, I think you got to let it be. Anyway, these people are out there. They're pretty rare. They are pretty rare. But don't let them get you in a one-on-one conversation is what I'm going to say. And I think this might... Sorry I talked about that for so long. I think it's interesting and whatever the hell. But this, I think, connects to something someone wrote in about closure. A listener wrote in and said, WHATADO, closure. I was crushed earlier today when I read a stranger's take that, quote, closure is something you give yourself. Closure is making peace with never having all the whys, never saying the last words, and choosing to move forward. How can one heal open-ended wounds for yourself? I am moving on. Life doesn't quit, but I am haunted by the whys that will never be answered. She says, long story short, my husband left last year without an explanation. Juicy details available upon request. I have not gotten the juicy details yet. That is incredibly heartbreaking. I cannot imagine what you're going through. And I will try to answer to the best of my ability how I feel about closure. And as annoying, as insanely annoying as it is, I do agree. Closure is not something that someone else gives you. And I've thought about this closure question for a while because people write in about this all the time. They're going through breakups or whatever, heartbreak, tragedy, disaster, and they're like, how do I get closure on this thing? It's so relatable. And I have found closure for myself in very hard periods. But, when I lost out on the career I wanted, the dream I wanted, that's a kind of death. When I had breakups, all these different forms of grief, when I experienced death, I think any kind of like grief or a loss of the life you thought you were living or you thought you were gonna have, it's just robbed from you. Your husband leaves with no explanation. How the fuck do you get closure? But I do believe it does not come from other people. And Mel Robbins, I was listening to Mel Robbins recently, who I think is great. And she on her podcast was talking about how closure is being clear on what doesn't work for you and what your boundaries are. So when I had an ex who broke up with me all the time, and I loved him and he probably loved me, but he just eroded my trust in the relationship. There was no safety left for me in this relationship if I was going to be broken up with and abandoned all the time. And yes, he'd come back, and yes, he'd love me, and yes, he wouldn't get married, and yes, he whatever. But like, it was such a reckless way to be treated, such a horribly reckless, psychotic way to be treated. And eventually our final breakup was him breaking up with me. And I was still devastated. I was still shocked. After many years, I still felt like the rug was torn out from under me after I had seen him through so much difficulty in his life. And once he got back up on his feet, he was like, okay, I'm good, bye. And he couldn't support me in my hard time. It's okay. He did us both a favor. It's the best thing that ever happened. But at the time, I was fucking flattened on my face, completely distraught. I did not feel strong in this. I did not feel righteous in this. I could barely live. But eventually, reflecting on the way I was treated the whole way through this, quite frequently through this relationship, there were good things, but this frequent pattern of robbing me of my feeling of security and safety, and also even just the way he left me. All of a sudden, rug out from under my feet, very flippant. He had a bad day, wanted to end, wasn't going to support me, couldn't be there when I was having a hard time. That, I was going to keep choosing that actually. But that wasn't a healthy choice for me. And if I had any standard for myself, I would have named for myself back then that this doesn't work for me. It didn't work for me then. Even before he broke up with me, it wasn't working for me. But I was just continuing to stay around, and my therapist once described it as you were living on fumes, just living on fucking nothing, wasting away. This person giving me so little, and I was sticking around, but it was not working for me. And I didn't have a clear boundary about that. I didn't draw the line and say, fuck it, I'm out. I didn't. He did me the gift of drawing that line for me. But once I had the time to reflect, I was able to see already the thing that was not working for me. With my friend, Sarah. Yep, you were a super fun person. You were hilarious. We had a lot of fun times, and I still miss the dynamic. But I have closure because I am clear on why this is over. Because I'm clear on why that doesn't work for me. And I'm clear on what boundaries I have and why they won't be crossed. And I say this, like I have a friend recently who's talking about like, should I break up with so-and-so? Should I break up with my boyfriend? There's this good thing, but there's that bad thing. And I just said to her, like, I don't know what you're supposed to do. But a lot of the time people, they break up with their partner for some reason. And then a couple weeks go by and they've forgotten all the bad things and they want to have them back and they're back in it and they want to go back and blah, blah, blah. It's like they've forgotten all the things that weren't working for them. They've forgotten them. And so I think if you're contemplating a breakup or you're contemplating a marriage or whatever, any of these decisions, be very clear and very honest with yourself about why you are choosing it. Why are you choosing the breakup? Why are you choosing to stay together? Why are you choosing to leave? And it's not because everything's bad. It's usually not that simple. There are good things, but what are the things that you will not tolerate? Personally, something that doesn't work for me is a husband who will up and leave in the middle of the night with no notice. That tells me a lot about who you are. And I would be surprised if there weren't other characteristics from him prior to that was affecting the listener who wrote in. but maybe not. Maybe just after however many years, he finally revealed to you how he is. He is not steadfast. He is not honest. He's not willing to communicate. He's not willing to work through things or say difficult things. And that doesn't work for me. Whatever other beautiful things you had, and there's probably a lot to mourn and a lot to grieve. Beautiful things. But that is a fucking deal breaker. I'm not going to be with that fucking person. Actually, I was with them for 6 years. But no longer. Won't do that anymore. Someone who's going to bail at the flip of a coin? No. Steadfastness is one of the most important things in a committed relationship because things will always be hard or difficult or often hard or difficult. And it's not so much that like nothing ever goes wrong, but that you're committed to doing your best to figure out solutions together. Steadfastness is probably the most important thing in a relationship. So a husband who ups and leaves in the middle of the night with no forewarning for no reason, quote, no reason that he'll communicate to you, that's like a failure of a partner. I don't care what else was good. That's a failure. And it obviously doesn't work for you. And it shouldn't. And I would be really curious to hear if there were truly nothing else related to that character trait that she experienced beforehand. Because the other friends I have who experienced the rug being pulled out from them by a husband after years, a betrayal, a reveal, all of a sudden, when they look back, there were hints of those character traits before that they willingly ignored, just like I willingly ignored all these things that weren't working for me. So I think you can do that, like getting clear on what doesn't work for you, getting clear on what your boundaries are and what boundaries you will not have crossed anymore. I think you can do it after the fact. After you've been broken up with, after you've been heartbroken, after you've experienced loss. You can also do it before, but to be really clear with yourself about what works for you, what you will tolerate, and what you will not, even if it's wrapped with a lot of good. That is what closure is. That is what closure is. When I heard Mel Robbins say that, it was like, it felt so articulate and true to me. So I hope that resonates with other people. I'll link in the video description, the video where she talks about that. But I hope that does it for you. It might take some reflection. You deserve that clarity. And I'm so sorry. Hang in there because there are such better things ahead. That is not as good as it gets, dog. You know that feeling when you get broken up with and you're like, oh, this semi-abusive person who abandoned me half the time and always left me feeling insecure and scared of it. I'll never find anyone better than that. This person who threatened all my friendships and talked shit behind my other friends' back and caused fights between the siblings and told me that so-and-so is mad. It'll never get better. I'll never meet a friend better than that. I'll never have a boyfriend better than that. Bro, it gets better than that. That is not as good as it gets. That is not as good as it gets. I don't care what other good was in there. That is not as good as it gets. Hang in there. It's going to get better. Okay, dating WHATADO. Let's wrap it up with something light. Somebody wrote in and said, hi, ladies. I wanted to get your 2 cents in a future WHATADO section if it's an interesting topic to you. I met this guy recently on Bumble, and on paper, everything is great. He's kind, treats me well, pulled my chair out for me, brought me a thoughtful gift on the 3rd date. He's an interesting person with a lot of qualities and skills to admire. He cares about my pleasure during sex and is quite good at it. No complaints look-wise either. I kind of related to Caroline's situation when she first met Justin because I also felt like I needed to act like I'd been treated this well before. Cry face. Cry laugh face. Yeah. My only issue is that he's not that great of a conversationalist. I feel like I'm the one that has to carry the discussion, to ask thoughtful questions and make insightful observations, while he seems content with going along. So I think her message cut off, but basically WHATADO, should she keep dating this person? First question is, I'm not totally clear on how long it's been. If it's within the first, I mean, you'll make the call. If you're done, you're done. But I still think this is worth giving it a shot. I think it's probably worth giving it a little more time because those things you named, listen, if there's no other theme of this podcast episode, like banter and great vibes and everything, I'm not going to say it's easy to find, but it's also not everything. To me, like I've had that in relationships before and it left plenty to be desired and it did not make me happy. It was not enough. I've had that in friendships before and it was not enough. What I think is a lot more rare is that you say he treats you so well in all these fucking ways. It's like the treatment, the respect, the sex, the whatever is all really great. So if like the bantery conversation is not there, he's not quite as insightful or thoughtful with his questions, that could be a deal breaker, but I would give it a little bit more time because that can build. And I mean, I would say with Justin and I told him this, so I will share this because he knows this. But for a while, I read like an early journal entry a couple months ago, and it was a journal entry from like way early in dating where I was just like, I'm so in love with this person. He's so wonderful. I've never been treated so well. He's so kind. He's so thoughtful. He's so smart. He's so committed and invested and blah, blah, blah. The only thing is like, I don't think we're going to really have like a silly dynamic together. Like, I don't think we have like that silliness, but that's okay. Like, I am so willing to, that seems like a very fair trade-off. I don't have to have that in all my relationships. I have that elsewhere with my friends. Like, this can be the person who's just so stable and committed and loving and wonderful and smart and engaging. And like, we don't have to have like the silly, goofy thing that I have in some of my relationships. That's fine. And by the time I found that old journal entry and read it again, I forgot that had ever been a thing. I forgot that there was ever a time that we weren't silly and goofy because we're so fucking silly and goofy now. But that took like at least 6 months to develop. And I was okay with the trade-off. I was already so happy with our relationship. It fed me so much and made me feel so loved and so good and filled this gap in my life that no one else could fill. That I was like, it's okay if we're not goofy. But then after 6 months, we reached this different level of our conversation, of our banter, of our dynamic. It took 6 months to develop. And we're so silly goofy, like we should both be shot. It's annoying. But it was just funny to find that journal entry it was like a few months into dating where I was so sure that would not be our thing. And that still developed later on. So I don't know what exactly like the timeline is supposed to be, but I just mean to say, I think it's worth a lot that this person treats you so well. That sounds like it should be the bare minimum, but we all know that's really hard to find. And the sex is great. And, you know, you enjoy your time together. He interests you. You're attracted to him. That's a lot. I think that's great. It doesn't mean that you have to settle for not having good conversation, but maybe maybe the great conversation will evolve with time. Some people take a lot longer to relax. Some people take like half a year to relax, you know what I mean? Or longer. Or maybe it's just going to take time for your dynamic to develop. Or maybe maybe you'll end up feeling like it's really great to just having a loving, nourishing, caring relationship. And you can have like the great conversation in your friendships. You can have the great conversation at work or with some of your family members. Like, you might end up discovering that you are okay not having that in your romantic relationship, because guess what? Your romantic relationship will be missing something. It is not going to capture every possible thing. There will be trade-offs. And maybe the trade-off is great conversation. And luckily, you can have friends for that. Like, that's how I felt early on. I was just like, well, I have my friends to be goofy with. That's okay. Not all my friends are going to fucking hold me tight at night and spoon me and make love to me and treat me like a princess. It'd be weird for them to do that. So I was like very cognizant of the trade-off I thought I was making. It felt very worth it to me. And then I ended up being wrong anyway. And he's also a goof monkey. But I think it's interesting to look around and see the good relationships that I respect and admire, and how sometimes they just exist on one or two planes. Maybe it's a relationship that just exists like professionally, they creatively inspire each other, and they like to stay up late at night and philosophize together, but they're not really a couple that goes out together. They don't really socialize together, and they don't maybe laugh that much. But they're super happy, and maybe those individuals do that separately with their friends more. Or maybe it's a couple who like, they're so silly, they're so laughy, but like they don't share a lot of interests, or like they don't share a lot of like topics. One's into sports, one's into ballet, whatever. And the thing they share is just like loving their family together, talking about their family, their kids, socializing together. But these separate interests are things that they have on their own. And I think that's fine. I think there's so many different combinations of ways to have that strong foundation of a relationship. And it's nice that we have friends to provide other things for. I don't think it has to be everything. And it won't be. It literally won't be. So I don't know how far along you are. I think if it gets to a point where you're like, he's literally not asking me things about myself, or nothing is developing here, and I can feel my interest waning because it's leaving so much to be desired, and the rest that he does fulfill is not enough, I think you'll know. But the other thing with dating is like, you don't actually have to know if you want to stay with this person forever. You kind of just need to know, do you want to see them one more time? Are you interested enough to learn one more date's worth about them? Great. That's all you need to know. Go kiss him on the lips. And, you could probably say to him too, I like to have deeper conversations, blah, 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 blah. You could say something direct. I don't know if that's ever worked for me. I'm sure that's somebody's advice. It's some fucking therapist's advice to be like, just directly tell him that you want to have deeper conversations, and then it'll magically happen. I don't know. There's probably some way to do that. I don't know how to do it. You can try it, but I think I would just give it time. Yeah. I think it's also hard if you met him on Bumble, and it's hard meeting people in the vacuum of dating apps where you don't have a lot of common touch points, common environments, common social worlds to share. I think that gets easier and easier, and I think it takes longer for that to build when you've met off a dating app personally. Y'all, that's it. I'm so hot. I got boob sweat on my toes at this point. The boob sweat is moving, and I'm thirsty and my back hurts, so I gotta go. I love you guys. This is a great time. I yelled a lot, probably. I think I cursed a lot too, and that wasn't ideal, but my heart is in the right place. I promise you, and my boob sweat is on my feet. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Mwah.